In Argentina, the Federal Court No. 2 sentenced Argentinian Vice President Cristina Fernandez to 6 years in prison and banned her for life to hold any public office. In Barbados, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel called for the strengthening of cooperation mechanisms during the 8th CARICOM-Cuba Summit. In the United Kingdom, firefighters' unions protested on Tuesday demanding better salaries amid the country's rising inflation. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. After a very irregular judicial process, Federal Court No. 2 sentenced Argentinian Vice President Cristina Fernandez de Kirchner to 6 years in prison and disqualified her for life to hold any public office. During the verdict, the judges sentenced Lázaro Báez to 6 years in prison for fraudulent administration in Santa Cruz public works case together with the political leader. On the other hand, the court acquitted Vice President Cristina Fernandez, Lázaro Báez, José López, and Nelson Periotti on the crime of illicit association for which they had been accused in the same public works case. After the convictions, the court ordered the confiscation of more than 84 billion pesos from those convicted. In parallel, social movements and citizens have demonstrated in support of Vice President and interjection of the judicial persecution against her. In this sense, the popular forces denounced the various accusations and attacks against the political leader. After the decision of the Federal Court No. 2, organizations and unions called for multiple protests this Tuesday in the country in support of Cristina Fernandez. During the 8th CARICOM-Cuba Summit in Barbados, President Miguel Diaz-Canel called for the strengthening of cooperation mechanisms among the countries of the region. Diaz-Canel stressed that deepening cooperation is vital to solve regional problems. He also highlighted the legacy of the historic leader of the Cuban Revolution, Fidel Castro, who consolidated the bonds of friendship and South-South cooperation. The establishment of diplomatic relations with Jamaica, Guyana, Barbados, and Trinidad and Tobago on December 8, 1972, was a transcendental event that helped preventing Washington's attempts to isolate Cuba.
Exchanging among brothers, as has occurred regularly and constantly over the last 20 years, is something that we owe to a proposal made by the historic leader of the Cuban Revolution, Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro Ruz, thanks to whose initiative it was agreed to hold these meetings in the common desire to consolidate special ties of friendship and collaboration within the framework of Sud-Sud cooperation.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel Bermudez ratified his willingness to provide assistance to the Haitian people in the face of the complex multidimensional crisis that the country is experiencing.
Dear friends, the post-pandemic world, if there is a post-pandemic world, demands from governments more solidarity, more understanding, more cooperation, and more unity. As so many times throughout its dramatic history, today the sister nation of Haiti is going through a particularly complex situation. On behalf of Cuba, which advocates stability and peace in Haiti, which defends the rights of its people to find a peaceful solution to their great challenges through dialogue, we ratify here our willingness to continue offering our help to these brotherly people.
Barbados Prime Minister Honorable Miyamoto, speaking at the opening of the 8th CARICOM-Cuba Summit, said that the region is at the right time for the bloc's leaders to commit to building unity.
My friends, I could give many examples of assistance from Cuba in education, in disaster management, sports, but I would simply like to say that if there was ever a time to re-engage, to work together as one Caribbean, but also as countries of the Global South, that time is now. We are facing the biggest challenges, from climate crisis to lack of reform of global financial institutions to make them fairer, so that smaller countries may have fair access, for they are paying a disproportionate price as it is.
In Dominica, citizens went to the polls this Tuesday in snap general elections called by Prime Minister who was carried in early November. 45 candidates have registered to compete across the nation's 21 constituencies. The Dominican Labour Party already has a 6-seat lead in the National Assembly as they won the Pays Bush, Villeques, Cottage, Colihot, Petit Savan, and Russo Valley constituencies since they were unopposed. The DELP, Team Unity Dominica, and a slew of independent candidates are competing in the snap elections. After casting his vote, Prime Minister Roosevelt is said to be confident that his party will reach the planned targets.
Well, I expect all 21. We already have 6 that have been declared, and I am confident that we'll get the other 15. But we'll see at the end of the day. Whatever the results are, shall respect the will of the people, and that's what we will do. As we have always done that, even in our time in opposition, we always accepted the results and have been credible, free, and fair.
Colombian Vice President Francia Marquez, speaking at the opening session of the Permanent Forum for Afro-Descendants at United Nations European Headquarters in Geneva, called for historical reparation for African and Afro-descendant populations. Marquez said this has been a long-neglected issue at the UN and urged all countries to shoulder responsibility in undertaking concrete actions to influence the global agenda to combat racism and to promote the rights of black people at all levels so that Afro-descendants may reclaim their pride through the actual transformation of still prevalent neo-colonial systems and its burdens. Marquez said that dignifying the black peoples in the world and allowing Africa to reconnect with its diaspora would be a great step towards reconciliation of humanity. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account of teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. Hundreds of members of Britain's Fire Brigades Union are protesting in London over wages after calling a strike as the UK grapples with a growing number of public and private sector staff organizing strike action. The wave of strikes that is spreading across the United Kingdom added this Tuesday the confirmation of one of the strategic areas and on a crucial date. Members of the National Union of Rail, Maritime and Transport Workers confirmed a strike that will take place from December 24th to December 27th, one of the busiest periods of the year in the country. The strikes are focused on demands for better working conditions and wage increases that would remain in line with price increases. News channel Al Jazeera submitted a formal request to the International Criminal Court on Tuesday asking the organization to investigate the fatal shooting of journalist Shireen Abu Akleh as she was reporting from a Palestinian refugee camp in May. Al Jazeera accused the Israeli government of specifically targeting its journalist, calling Abu Akleh's death a war crime. The news outlet asked ICC prosecutor Karim Khan to include her killing as well as the 2021 Israeli airstrike on Al Jazeera's office in the Gaza Strip in his ongoing investigation into the situation in Palestine. Abu Akleh's family submitted their own request for an ICC investigation in September. Following international pressure, Israeli Defense Forces admitted it was likely that one of their soldiers shot the prominent correspondent while she was reporting on a military raid in the West Bank.
We expect that the prosecutor would seek justice and truth, and we expect that the court will deliver accountability and hold those responsible, the institutions and individuals responsible, accountable for this heinous crime.
The prosecutor now has a comprehensive body of evidence. We have, over the last 6 months, interviewed eyewitnesses who were there, who recorded it. We've also unearthed a whole lot of new footage that has come out from different angles, different places, showing what happened. There's been a comprehensive inquiry done by Al-Haq, which also looked at a crime scene analysis, which put together with the evidence that we are providing and all the evidence that there makes a overwhelming case for the prosecutor to investigate. There can be no reason now, we say, not to take the next step, which is to investigate, find the persons responsible and charge them.
Here in full support of Israel.
On Tuesday, the International Energy Agency forecasted green energy will soon surpass coal as the world's largest electricity source, as energy insecurity amid the conflict in Ukraine is originating a push and pushes for clean power research. According to the agency, many countries motivated by the conflict in Ukraine have turned to renewables such as solar and wind to reduce reliance on imported fossil fuels, looking to replace Russian gas with alternatives as quickly as possible. The International Energy Agency said Tuesday the global capacity for producing clean energy will soar by some 75% in the next 5 years, and renewables will account for over 90% of global electricity expansion, overtaking coal to become the largest source of global electricity by early 2025. The government of France announces it is waiting for technical agreements from the European Union to cap the price of Russian gas in the midst of the energy crisis the country is experiencing. The French President Emmanuel Macron said after his arrival to the summit between the leaders of the European Union and the Western Balkan countries that the bloc must reach a series of agreements that will allow the implementation of a cap to regulate gas prices. Macron considered that the limit on the price of fuel cannot be too low, as this would lead to a deficit of reserves which would aggravate the energy crisis as winter approaches. In this sense, the energy ministers of the European Union will hold an extraordinary meeting on December 13th in Brussels to try to reach an agreement. The Russian Ministry of Defense informed about the release of at least 60 soldiers held captive as a result of a negotiation process. According to the ministry, these captives who were in mortal danger and who were returned from the Kiev-controlled territory will be transferred to Moscow in Air Force military transport to receive treatment and rehabilitation in medical facilities. These troops are in addition to the 50 who were also returned on December the 1st. The group of servicemen revealed how they were threatened to be amputated or killed in Ukrainian captivity. The Russian Defense Ministry denounced that Kiev constantly disrespects the norms of international law concerning prisoners of war. At least 9 people were killed and 15 others wounded after an attack of Ukrainian origin hit a residence located in the city of Alchevsk in the Russian People's Republic of Lugansk. The Ministry of Construction and Public Services of the People's Republic of Lugansk assured that the city was attacked with the 6 missiles of the armed forces of Ukraine, hitting among other areas the shelter that was inhabited by refugees and builders who work in the recovery of the city. So far, public services are still removing the debris from the site and search and rescue efforts continue. 3 other buildings were also damaged in the attack. On the outskirts of Indonesia, a majority Muslim country, a boarding school for transgender women exists as a rare oasis of acceptance. In most Muslim nations, gay and lesbian sex is criminalized, including in World Cup host Qatar. LGBTQ people are routinely rejected by their families, denounced by Islamic authorities, hounded by security forces, and limited to clandestine social lives. Chinta Pratri, founder of the Al-Fatah Islamic School in Yogyakarta, started the school 14 years ago to combat her own self-doubts and to create a place of safety and spirituality for women like her. Initially, the school had 20 students, and now there are about 60, many of them middle-aged.
Just imagine, when I graduated from high school in 1981, I had a question floating in my head. Am I being sinful just because I am a trans woman? Learning about religion is important. Humans who are born will feel that they are created beings. This religiosity is something that is important to anyone, including transgender women. Spiritual needs are an actual need, especially for transgender friends, when in acceptance they are far from spiritual touch.
We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back From the South. Chinese President Xi Jinping on Tuesday called on the whole Communist Party, the entire military and the Chinese people of all ethnic groups to turn grief into strength and carry forward the legacy of Jiang Zemin with concrete actions on the new journey towards the modernization of the country. The Chinese head of state made the statement in addressing a memorial meeting for Jiang Zemin, who passed away due to leukemia and multiple organ failure on November 30th at the age of 96 in Shanghai. Jiang was an outstanding leader enjoying high prestige acknowledged by the whole Communist Party, the military, and the Chinese people. All participants paid a 3-minute silent tribute to Jiang Zemin at the start of the memorial meeting at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said on Tuesday that Japan should respect the security concerns of its Asian neighbors and be cautious in its words and actions in the field of military security.
Japan has been increasing its defense budget for 10 consecutive years. It has also been hyping up regional tensions to seek military breakthroughs. This is a very dangerous development and has led to serious doubts among Japan's Asian neighbors and the wider international community about whether Japan will stick to its exclusively defense-oriented policy and the path of peaceful development. Japan needs to earnestly reflect on its history of aggression, respect the security concerns of Asian neighbors, act prudently in the field of military security, and do more things that are conducive to regional peace and stability.
On Tuesday, North Korean soldiers opened fire in retaliation to gunfire from South Korea on the border between the two countries. Pyongyang authorities have urged the South Korean government to stop its provocative military drills in the border area and ordered its soldiers to be vigilant and ready for any major counterattack. The North Korean government blames Seoul and Washington for increasing tensions in the peninsula by carrying out joint military drills in the border, despite the 2018 agreements in which they had pledged to cease provocations. Thailand police reported a bomb exploded next to a train track on Tuesday, killing 3 and injuring 4 people from the railroad authority. They were among dozens of workers who were repairing the section of train track damaged from a previous explosion which happened on December 3rd. The bombing occurred in the town of Sadao, and authorities have closed off the area to look for other possible undetonated bombs. Police could not confirm if the explosive was placed on Tuesday or was from an earlier incident. Demonstrators in the Mongolian capital took to the streets to protest against corruption in the government's coal sales. Thousands of Mongolians, mostly young people, held signs and chanted outside the state palace where the offices of the president and other officials are located. Inflation and reports of coal corruption scandal prompted people to miss work and school to demand an answer from the government and the dismissal of officials involved in the scandal.
I am a teacher and pay more loan than my income. I have come to join the youth who are demanding to expose those people who stole a lot of coal from our country and usurped our wealth.
Amid warnings that biodiversity is in freefall, environmental leaders will gather in Montreal, Canada to work out measures aimed at supporting the world's land and maritime ecosystems. Leaders also need to come up with tens of billions of dollars to fund these conservation efforts. Delegates from about 190 countries will assemble for nearly 2 weeks, starting on Wednesday at the United Nations Biodiversity Conference to finalize a framework for protecting 30% of global land and sea areas by 2030. Currently, 17% of terrestrial and 10% of sea areas are protected. The proposed framework also calls for reducing the rate of invasive species introduction and establishment of by 50%, cutting pesticide use in half, and eliminating the discharge of plastic waste. The United Nations Humanitarian Coordinator for Somalia warned on Tuesday the country is undergoing a catastrophic emergency due to the most severe drought in the nation's history. Speaking during a joint meeting of the League of Arab States and the UN, Adam Abdelmoula said Somalia was suffering from its 5th consecutive failed rainy season, with a 6th failed season predicted for next year. Abdelmoula outlined the situation, which has left nearly half of the country's population affected by drought, and nearly 1.3 million people have been displaced since January 2021. He added that 6.7 million people were expected to face high levels of acute food insecurity.
Somalia is undergoing a catastrophic emergency due to the longest and most severe drought the country has experienced in its recorded history. 4 consecutive failed rainy seasons are being followed right now by a 5th one, and projections indicate that the situation will continue through a 6th failed rainy season in early 2023.
Statistics indicates that the numbers of people who are living in pre-famine or near-famine conditions in Somalia have increased 5 times since the beginning of the year, and internal displacement is still ongoing, and the conflict for scarce resources is dangerously affecting peace and security for society and the political situation in Somalia.
As the hearts of millions of fans lift the emotions of the Qatar 2022 World Cup, teleSUR joins this sporting event with From the Field, a show that brings news, analysis, reviews, and more to our audience. Don't miss it, our show airs at 1 p.m. local time in Caracas and 12 p.m. in New York. Remember, From the Field, only on teleSUR. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.